Hello and welcome to This Is. Everyone knows the most stable structure is the bubble.
Oh yes, I have carefully studied its many facets, and we're going to carefully rank them on our bubbleometer that we have so carefully put together. And by we, I mean Kenzie did all the work. I'm ready to make some money. I'm ready to be an investor in the next wave. And most importantly, I'm gonna get the hell out of there before all you chumps lose all your money.
What is the bubble?
The bubble is the hype. Think about something like the stock market. It goes up, it go down.
And then sometimes that bubble pops
And then
and it never goes back up again.
Let's begin. Matt, would you like to pick the first item?
First up, we got Uber, or in general, like the share gig economy. All the things where it's just like, hey, what if you put up all the capital and we make all the money?
I'm a big fan of independent contractors.
In 2018, Uber and Lyft lost a combined almost $3 billion.
Remember when Uber was cheap? You remember when you could like Uber from one side of LA to the other for $20, not $120?
Yeah.
That was called subsidies, my friend.
The one that gets me is the food delivery.
Yeah.
Because
DoorDash, Uber Eats.
Grubhub was an amazing way to find like other restaurants in your area.
Sure.
And it was just like, hey, like the small independent restaurants have a way to go on, you know, to post online. And now it's nothing but McDonald's. All of like the cool local places kind of have gone.
Just like how the early days of many of these things were heavily subsidized, it got you into it, it pushed a lot of other people out, and then when things actually have to make money, they crank the prices up. So we gotta figure out, are we investing in Uber and the sharing economy? Because I gotta be honest with you, I feel like there was a point in which this was a great idea, but then it went downhill precipitously, and now they're just like regular boring businesses. I don't want a dividend. I want 4x my money overnight, baby.
No one knows what you're talking about.
Stonks.
If you're an Uber driver, there's nothing wrong with that. Don't be ashamed of that. But can you please stop telling me that you're an entrepreneur every time I get in your goddamn car? Just shut up and drive the car. That's your job. All right? Also, guys, FYI, it costs $350 to clean up an Uber if you ever get sick in one.
I'm gonna say we're a little bit lower. I'm not investing in the sharing economy. I feel like it's played out.
I'm gonna say it's on the down.
We're on the down.
It has potential, but once all that VC money goes away. This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Take your small business or side hustle to the next level with a personalized website from Squarespace.
Does your design experience start and end with Microsoft Paint? Well, mine sure does, but no worries, because that's exactly what Squarespace's design intelligence feature is for. Their new cutting-edge AI tools are trained using 2 decades of design expertise to help you build your website.
And once you've got your customers on board with your wicked website, it's super easy to set up a variety of payment options. With just a few simple clicks, you can accept Apple Pay, PayPal, credit cards, and even buy now, pay later services like Afterpay in eligible countries.
Their new online store feature makes it easier than ever to sell content online. You can put up online courses, blogs, videos, even the Banjo Boys' new EP once we have worked out our creative differences.
We need more boys in the Banjo Boys.
No, we need more banjos. It's as easy as picking your price and whether you want a one-time fee or a recurring subscription.
Are you ready to supercharge your brand's online presence? Well, check out squarespace.com/thisis to get your free 14-day trial and 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. And again, huge thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video.
All right, next up we have good old NFT. You know what I love about a token? When it's non-fungible. These were incredibly popular in the early 2020s. And Matt, as a noted holder of many millions of dollars worth of JPEGs, can you please tell me why you're taking these to the moon?
You were on board with NFTs.
Yeah, because I'm trying to make money, baby.
You sat there and be like, hey, this is kind of cool. You showed us like a 1997 like Windows screensaver and like, yeah, you could just like own this and then sell it to someone. You were totally on board. I'm calling you out on this.
I was about making the money. Unfortunately, I never actually bought any of them, so I didn't make any money on them. But theoretically, you could have done a lot. I feel like NFTs were about the bubbliest of bubbly things, fueled in large part because everyone had their COVID money and importantly, nothing better to do.
Yep.
It was an incredibly hyped market and it has completely disappeared. Between January of 2022 and September 2023, trade volumes with NFTs dropped 97%. There's still a few people buying and selling, but I think is probably the clearest definition of bubble tech there is.
I've said this multiple times, I'll stand by it, and you guys can hate me for that. I think the only thing like this is good for is like, which is not technically an NFT, but like a digital game code of like, hey, I want to sell you my game.
Yeah.
And I'll do it that way. Justin Bieber paid $1.3 million for a Bored Ape, which is the perfect name for the people who bought these. Astonishing to me that it even has value, because it's a fucking JPEG.
What's money anyway, bro? It's a social construct.
Twitter tried to do the hexagon.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what else we've got on this list. I see a whole bunch of bubbles in front of us, but I gotta say, it's gonna be hard to top the NFT bubble. This was among the bubbliest bubbles that have ever existed. I think we have put this pretty far down. There was no value here. It was an investment. You were trying to get in, make your money, and get the hell out.
But that's the problem. It's not an investment. It's gambling.
I want to put them over here.
It's gotta be down pretty far down there.
I think this is what, I mean, what is gonna be worse than an NFT?
The Austin Evans YouTube channel.
Pick our next bubble action.
I'm gonna go with Generative AI. I've come around a little bit on AI.
Please tell us more.
So, all right, first of all, generative AI, when things first came out and they're like, here's all this thing you could do with it. I'm like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
However, using it as like an assistant, I have come around to that. So I am using Claude.
Yep.
To kind of organize some of my thoughts. I have been recently learning how to learning to code.
Yeah, vibe coding it?
No. But like I'll be like looking at this and I'm like, I'm getting an error here. I don't even know what that error means. I don't think it's like replacing a teacher, but I do feel like it's a nice study buddy.
I know for me personally, Gemini has largely overtaken Google search. Most of the time, if I have a even moderately complex question, I will use Gemini to do that. I think the bubbly part of this is the amount of money, because I will tell you, investors are backing up truckloads of cash and dumping it directly into the fire or NVIDIA GPUs. Every NVIDIA AI GPU that goes into a data center, Jensen has personally given a single tier.
For you to generate a picture of a unicorn, a real unicorn had to be sacrificed.
That's pretty much accurate.
With how much energy it takes to do this. Even with people spending $200 a month on ChatGPT Pro, it actually costs ChatGPT more money than that.
I'm a little bit more pro AI than I think maybe the average person is, because I've seen a lot of like very useful things, and this is not tech that's going away.
AI is a great tool for the people who are good at things to become better at them. The money people are like, no, I could just get rid of this person.
Yeah.
And this can almost do it. And it's like, this could do 80% of it, but you know, it doesn't cost anything. Where I think it's good requires to have a competent, good human to spark the creativity. I don't like want to say that this is a complete bursted bubble yet, because I think the bubble does need to pop with AI for it to get better.
Bruh. That's my new name.
Bruh.
BRUH. Aaron, in case you need to make a graphic for it.
Bruh.
These are not good glasses. We're out here to make money. We're out here to be successful winners. And most importantly, we're out here to invest in the tech that you're too afraid of, so we can cash out before your 401k gets there, and we've already made our money. I sold my girlfriend's plasma, and I'm ready to go all in.
What does your girlfriend's boyfriend think about that?
Well, he's a little bit less happy with this, but we're gonna still get there when we're rich. We're pretty high on this. This is a bubble, but it's a good bubble. This is never gonna pop. It's like a bubble that floats all the way to the moon.
I'll give you there.
Next, we have the Metaverse. I feel like the Zuck, he knew what was up. He decided to change the name of the company from Facebook to Meta, and we're all living in the Metaverse right now, right?
One of the things I was terrified of was with the Metaverse. This is when people are starting to buy land. I'm worried that if this starts to take off even a little bit, companies like Samsung or LG, they're gonna stop selling a physical TV, because they're gonna sell you a TV for your house in the Metaverse. I've read enough sci-fi novels that like this is what happens.
Let's be a little bit positive here, because again, we're a bunch of smart investors. We can have a meeting with our personas. We can put on our Meta Quests and hang out in Horizon Worlds together.
The only time that I've enjoyed VR was when I got
silly
and went into my 80s basement VR.
Oh, when you play the Atari and everything?
That's the only time I've ever enjoyed VR.
I will say, from a pure investment standpoint, Metaverse is a bad investment right now. Meta burned a whole bunch of money, apparently. I'm just learning. I gotta go sell some stocks real quick.
This is 2028, the year of the haptics. If I can't come touch it, I'm gonna pop it. So we're gonna pop that.
Well, so it's gotta be above NFTs.
It's
right?
gotta be above NFTs.
The only people who have really lost money in the metaverse is Meta. Everyone lost money on NFTs.
There were some people who had Metaverse NFTs and they lost extra money.
You know
Yeah,
what?
but they earned it.
We all can't bat a
And
thousand.
by earned it, I mean they deserved it. All right, next up we got 3D TVs.
Oh, now we're talking, baby. This is the future. You know what actually killed 3D TVs besides sheer stupidity? The fact that VR headsets are actually a better way to do 3D because you can just show different images to
Yes.
each eye. There's no weirdness.
3D TVs started to get their popularity back in 2010. Pretty much every manufacturer had some sort of 3D TV. So they re-released all these movies in 3D. They would
Did you
come
ever
in
see
like
Titanic
the
in 3D?
I thought I was gonna hit the iceberg myself.
I was
Then
exactly
I
what
found out
I was talking
I
about,
was the iceberg. So if you're gonna spend $1,500 on
Yeah.
a TV and then have to spend $300 or so on glasses,
Which
for
every,
every
normally
like,
came with it, but yeah, you
well,
need
you'd have
extra.
maybe 2 pairs
Yeah.
depending on the model. A family of 4 has to go spend another $600 on glasses.
It's not as bad as some of the things on those
No.
slides. That's my main thing. It didn't work.
It never
but
looked great.
all of these 3D TVs, you could just watch them in regular 2D and they're just fine. We're somewhere in the middle here. I would say maybe like down here.
Yeah. We'll do that.
The second generation of video game consoles. Let's say the
pop?
gentle market retrenchment of disastrous proportions. In the late 1970s, video games were exploding. So much so that some might say there was a bubble forming. Problem wasn't so much that the tech wasn't there, because some of these games, even though a lot of them were bad, they weren't necessarily awful on their own. But the problem was that the frenzy, the hype for video games had hit such a ridiculous pitch. E.T. is probably the most famous one, but other games such as Space Invaders and whatnot. So say that there's 20 million Atari 2600s that have been sold. Well, Atari goes, you know what? Let's make 30 million copies of E.T. Do you have that many consoles yet? No, but they'll buy them. In 1982, home video game sales hit $3.2 billion. A mere 3 years later, 1985, that 3.2 billion turned into 100 million. Matt, if you hadn't invested your stepson's life savings in 1982 into Activision and Atari stock, then maybe things would have been a little different.
That's the cool thing about stepsons is you can always just go get another one. I would argue that we're somewhat going back to this. We're forming a new gaming bubble. Look at Concord. Everyone wants to be the next Overwatch.
But this is a tough one to rank, right? Because the problem is we've been clustering in the middle. I feel like we're over here.
As with life, the markets fluctuate.
True.
We can.
Are we allowed to move things?
Yeah. Right there. I'm more positive on 3D TVs now because at least that was in your home.
Our bubble-o-meter is confusing me. I don't know where we're at. But anyway, another old thing, Tulips.
What?
So what happened here was that these are unique individual investments because they will bloom in the spring and then they go dormant in the summer, in which you can pick them up and trade them on over. People thought the tulips were beautiful, delightful, wonderful, all the things we feel about Matt today. Well, they felt about tulips when he was born in the 1500s.
It was so popular in the 1630s, they had speculators enter the market. People were reselling their contracts like stocks.
This was the beginning of so much of what happens today on a regular basis. This was the first real bubble. I think that there's a very, very good argument that this is the very first bubble of all time.
You're telling me someone in BC is not like, oh, I want good rock? Garg in the cave was saying like,
What market was Garg selling on?
rock. He licked rock, said good rock.
I am going to fully endorse this as the first bubble of all time. And I'm also going to fully say that in the 1600s, if you wanted to get rich, there were a lot of ways to do that, most of which were terrible. Tulips, slightly less terrible. I am unironically going to say.
Bullish on tulips. We got crowdfunding. So this here is a bubble that hasn't popped yet. But when a company who has millions of dollars says, you know what, we're gonna crowdfund our pre-orders like this, and we're gonna put on Kickstarter, even though we have, an established business like this. Ioneo, I'm looking at you specifically on this one, where they take like the Ioneo DS.
Yep.
And they say, here's all these pre-orders. And then they're like, you know what? We're just not going to make it anymore. So like some people get money back, but a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
The first time I ever backed something was an iPad stand, which I liked. And 2 years later, the guy's like, we couldn't make this work.
There's two distinct ways of thinking about crowdfunding. There's the example you're bringing up, which is, hey, I'm an established company and this is a glorified pre-order. That money is not actually enough to not only develop the thing, but also ship it. Like you're just buying it early, you're pre-ordering. There's also the legitimate small money things of like, hey, I am a person and I need to make $100,000 to make the molds and blah, blah, blah. And if it's popular enough, I'll make that money and then some other company will invest in me or I'll get a loan or whatever the case is, right? There's a good reason for a small company, person, group of people who want to put something together. Crowdfunding is a legitimate reason. Crowdfunding has settled, right? Yes, it was a bubble. I do think it popped. It is now settled to where it should be. But think about the early 2010s. Think about the Ouya. Think about the Cooler. Think about the Pebble. They all failed spectacularly because it was massively hyped. The bubble got huge, and then they couldn't follow through with their outlandish sort of promises, and the whole thing just imploded.
I think that happens still, though, like just not quite as it on that level. The IONEO is the perfect example of that still happening today. And for them to just be like, you know what? Yeah, we're just not gonna actually go through it. I think it's BS.
But here's the thing, was this on the scale of magnitudes here? How big of a deal was this? Because I would kind of say it was a big problem, but I don't think it was as big as some of the it's nowhere near as big as like Gen AI or NFTs.
Okay,
like
so
that.
it crashed and it's getting better. How about that?
It's coming back up. Yeah, I agree.
All right.
So we got two left. .com. A bunch of big old dummies thought that this internet thing had a future. The world would be changed where you'd be able to click some buttons on your Windows 98 computer and in 2 to 7 business days, a book would show up. But all of these companies failed miserably and the internet was discontinued in 2004 and we've all been happier for it.
A big part of it was that companies there was super low interest rates. So basically all these companies could pop up and start a company for pennies on the dollar. Startups would go public because they had all this huge potential.
A lot of money floating around.
So basically they're like, hey, we are valued at $1 billion because VCs gave us $1 billion. We are way more in a monopoly type thing of it's Amazon.com or you don't buy it.
Here's the thing, right? This is the Wild West where some of these companies were, worth unbelievable amounts of money on paper and had no profit in anything. It's kind of like when the streaming services all decided they were going to be a thing, like the late 2010s, where everyone dumped $1 bajillion into it to try to land grab, and then Netflix won, and everyone realized that was a bad investment.
But when Netflix was like $6 a month.
But this was a bubble in the truest sense of the word, because essentially through the late 90s, it built and built and built, and then the thing started to collapse. By November of 2000, $1.7 trillion in value was completely wiped out of internet stocks. And by 2004, 52% of the .com companies were out of business.
All these companies that stuck around are wiped out now because of Amazon.com.
The only thing I can say about the .com bubble is that at the time it was terrible, but it was a necessary thing to shake things out. And as much as it was a haha hilarious sort of thing, I would actually argue that some of the biggest companies the world has ever seen were founded during this bubble. I feel like the .com bubble is the tippy top.
I want to say the exact opposite.
What?
I want to say it's at the bottom.
Why?
Because monopolies.
We're not saying if these things are good or bad. We're just saying, how much money are we gonna make?
Last up, we got crypto.
Now, we're actually gonna talk about this. I think there's a couple ways you could look at it. There's the early days of crypto in the early to mid 2010s, where, it was just a bunch of nerds spending money on pizzas. I maybe had a whole pile of AMD graphics cards mining crypto and Litecoin, and I made dozens of dollars on. Can I tell a story? Can I tell you a fucking story?
Were you not just telling a story?
No, okay, a friend of mine spent like $100 on Bitcoin back in the day. Do you remember there was a brief period of time where Steam allowed you to buy games using Bitcoin? He bought the Call of Duty Black Ops Collector's Edition for like $200. That was like 200 Bitcoin. He spent $2 million on Black Ops on Steam, but it was the limited edition, so it came with all the cool skins. But I think by the early 2020s, and certainly now, cryptocurrency is a very different thing. Matt, are you on meme coins yet?
I did. I played. I frolicked with Dogecoin, and
Okay.
I made like $600.
You didn't add enough zeros to your winnings.
The only thing I did that night was got guac with my Chipotle.
Got guac money? In 2022, things started to take a bit of a turn. Not only were there multiple crypto ads in the Super Bowl, things like the famous Staples Center turning into the Crypto.com arena. There were F1 teams everywhere with crypto sponsorship. I mean, the money was wild. Maybe there were some problems with some people who got a little greedy and maybe spent a lot of money they didn't have. Yeah, there's a lot of fraud and a lot of bad things. And classic crypto tanked. Now, I would say crypto has been kind of like semi-permanently dented. It's really turned into meme coins now, because meme coins are literally just a Ponzi scheme that everyone's in on.
I'm gonna get real with you guys for a second.
Oh, we gotta be real. I was having fun. Oh, okay, fine. I'll be real.
Like, all of these things are just so terrible.
In all seriousness, this is gambling. There's nothing other. There's no other way to put this. This is gambling.
If we look at all of this is where I'm sad, because all of these things are what leads us here today.
We're not talking about, hey, some of these things are good. Most of these things are kind of bad. Some of them are okay.
They're only good if you made money on them.
I'm talking a big game. I don't actually invest in these things. I just think it's
fun. He did want to buy an NFT though.
Yes, it spiraled very quickly. It was an interesting idea for like 5 minutes at the beginning. That's all I said. I never bought one. I never got into it. I'm like, oh, what the hell is this?
Some guy named Jake ruined it like always. Like, follow, subscribe. Let us know what bubble's about to burst. I'm going to go blow some bubbles in some chocolate milk.
I'm going to go subscribe to the This Is channel, because I hear that this channel is going straight to the moon. When we hit 1 million subscribers, we're tattooing a bubble directly on Matt's hard cut when I said we're going to wear.
No, I'll do it right up the poop chute.